You guys. I am Christ, I am disciple. And we all need someone to help us in our world. We all need someone to talk to, brother. It's soul to soul. If you can reach out and help someone in our world, well, maybe you could talk to God. Oh, soul to soul, yes, yes, soul to soul, yeah, oh, soul to soul. All right, now, as you can see, the title of this stream is Soul to Soul. We start off with some good news, which has to do with Mahmoud Khalil. He was released from the ICE detention center in Louisiana after he was found to be not guilty of any crimes in the United States of America. His 3 months of detainment is over, and now he can sue ICE and the government for all their worth, and he should do it, in his family. An inconvenience for taking him from his family. Make sure to seal this down. Mahmoud Khalil said, and first of all, I want to thank all of you for campaigning for his release and bringing it to the attention of everybody. And the main negotiator for the encampment students and the main negotiator also for between the faculty and the students, Mahmoud Khalil, he has been released. Of course, a lot of damage has been done on Columbia University. There's a lot of shills up in there now. The organization has been restructured, and so it's very important to realize that while he has been released, nothing has changed the momentum in the direction in which things are going. Things are going in the direction, the momentum is such that the protesters and people, it just increased, it just agitated, it just irritated the protests and took it to the next level. People didn't stop protesting, it didn't muzzle people, it didn't intimidate people, it just emboldened them further. And they didn't even care if they went to prison or whatever. It also signaled the kind of authoritarian abuse of power that a government could use against the people, not working for the people now and on behalf of the people, but instead working in its own self-interest for special interest. And so you remember they have drafted legislation and all this bogus shit, and nobody's taking it on. People are just going full tilt, full hilt down the road because morally and ethically people see that there's a great gap. It's lacking the moral fabric and the moral efficacy that the government should have in taking stands to represent not just the people, but also in terms of global issues, taking a proper, correct moral stand that reflects the people that it represents. See, these governments don't get it. You are representing us. When you go all around the world as ambassadors to, let's say, the United States, you're representing the people of the United States. And this is what these people forget. They feel they are a law unto themselves and that they represent this small fraction of the population that's involved in corporate business, that owns corporate business. And they've been able to bamboozle the public and have been able to influence their minds for many, many decades. So they thought this is business as usual. The population will have to go along with this. And if they don't, we strong arm them. Well, those days are over. And now governments will worldwide will be held accountable to their populations, whom they represent and whom they are supposed to be serving in the best interest of the population. A lot of people tell me socialism is, it's not good and blah, 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 blah. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. How many of you out there would like to have free healthcare? How many of you out there would like to have free transport? How many of you out there would like to have free education? Socialism at its root is supposed to give back to the population, to take care of the population. Before profits comes people. People come before profits. The people come before profits. If the people are profiting, you have a very successful country. It's that simple. That's why China is the way it is. Y'all want to say China is ruled by dictatorship and by these communists. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, China is ruled by its people. By its people. And I'm not saying it's a perfect system, but you can see that because the majority of people, the will of the people, is being satisfied. The standard of living in China is way beyond the standard of living in many Western countries right now. And the reason is because the governments are not trying to serve the individuals in the government and the corporations alone. No. They are trying to serve all the people of China and make sure that all the people of China are satisfied. And if all the people of China are satisfied with them, they stay in power. If all the people in China are not satisfied with them, you will get strikes. You will get civil unrest. No matter how hard they try to break that down, you get Tiananmen Square. You guys are not listening. China had to evolve. China had to overcome a lot of things to get to where it is today. Okay? And I'm not just using China as the example. We're having a more and more united Africa. Right now in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore is revered. You know why? Because he's doing the will of the people in Burkina Faso. If he wasn't doing the will of the people, he'd just be another one of those dictator governments, dictating to the people what they should do. The people will be oppressed. That is not what's happening in Burkina Faso. And shows you socialism is important. I'm not saying capitalism can't be somewhere. China obviously embraces capitalism. Burkina Faso embraces capitalism. Okay? We're not saying capitalism doesn't have its place, but it has its place secondary to the well-being of the people that live in a country. If you're ruling a country, not corporations, if you're ruling a country, if you're ruling a corporation, then everybody in that corporation should benefit from you. We get that. That's your interest. Your interest is the corporation. If you're ruling a country, it is all the people in the country that's of your interest. It is not just a select few who run corporations, not just a select few, especially at the top of the chain. Jesus said, as a Christian, I'm going to speak. Jesus said, as you do unto the least of these my brethren, the least, you've done it unto me. In other words, Jesus put clout behind helping the poor, making sure the needy, making sure the homeless have something. I'm gonna make a confession. I have two confessions. The first one is there's a gentleman in my community. I know him very well. And I've seen him now the last couple of days. He seemed as though he was in the hospital and came out of the hospital. And I've been seeing him on the streets. Now, it's not rare to see this individual on the streets. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want him. I don't want people to, vilify him. And it's nothing I'm going to say that's going to vilify him. But here's the thing: I saw him on the streets last night. I saw him sleeping in front of a pharmacy. Now, back in the day, he would, drink and smoke and use drugs and all of that stuff. And the night before, I saw him much further down from the area in another part, and he was he begged out, he kind of yelled out to me a sort of way, like a beggar yell. He lived in Trinity. He lived in Trinity in his room in a house, which is supposed to be the entire house, supposed to be his, but he's living in a room in that house. But I keep on seeing him on the street. Now, I don't know if he goes back to his house. I don't even know if he can walk properly because most of the time when I see him, he's on the ground. But he obviously gets around and he covers large amounts of distances. I'm not sure if he's crawling. I don't know if he gets up and walks. I don't know. He gets money. People give him money. He begs. Now, he was doing odd chores and stuff, but it seems as though he's not strong enough to move around like that. I don't know what happened to him. He seems as though he got in some sort of accident. Maybe somebody hit him with something, but now he's not moving around. He's not standing up and moving around a lot. Looks like he's weak or whatever. But here's the thing. The thing I'm getting at is it was disturbing to me to see him those 2-3 different times, and I'm still worried. I'm still thinking. I visited the place where he lives. I see there's a red door on the room where he used to be. Did they kick him out of his house? I don't know what's going on. I need to talk to him. And it just went through my mind because I just said, as you do to the least of these, my brethren. See, these are the people, regardless of what they did in their lives, that are the least in our society. In fact, most people ignore them as they go about their day. They don't even notice that they're there, which is terrible. All right, it's horrific to see a human in such horrific condition and to ignore that and just go on about your business. It tells you that you have desensitized yourself and you've hardened your heart to people. And it's very disturbing when that happens. Now, I'm not saying that homeless people cannot be extremely, some of them, horrific themselves. What I mean by that is some homeless people, like, I came to sell yesterday. And when I went out, there was this whole set of clothes thrown on the ground. It was screwed all over the area where I usually sell. And I knew it was vindictive. I knew it was evil intent. And it seems as though if it's not by a homeless person, it's by someone with a mentally disturbed mind. It was a deliberate attempt to sabotage what I was doing. So you have that, okay? And you have homeless people who throw rocks at people and all kinds of crazy things happen. But what I'm saying is, though, in spite of that, what we call the despicables, what in India they call the untouchables, what in other countries they call undesirables, failures, etc. These are the people Jesus said, how you treat them is how you would treat me. The least of these. When I look at poor people worldwide and how they are treated, generally speaking, they're treated very disrespectfully. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Very simple. When you think of any war, Congo, Sudan, whatever, you don't hear about individual names. You never hear about individual lives because these countries are in war. They're wealthy in terms of mineral resources, but they are poor in terms of the people being poor. How can a country be rich in mineral resources, whether it's Guyana, Venezuela, Jamaica, that's in my region, and then African countries, right? Many African countries, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. These countries went for years, Congo, these countries went for years, poor. The people are poor there, but the stuff that they export, the gold, the cobalt, the precious minerals, the diamonds, other countries are becoming fat off of the wealth of their land, but the people themselves are not. How is that possible, ladies and gentlemen? If not for greed, and for lasciviousness, and for wickedness, to pit the people against each other, to pit the people in adjacent regions against them, to loot, pillage, and exploit the people. How are the governments allowing that to happen? And I'm going to tell you why. When a government is put into power, when politicians are put into power, the corrupt ones are easily bought. The corrupt ones are easily swayed into doing special interest. And I say special interest. I'm not even speaking about country right now. I am speaking about special interest. Because it's the special interests of the world who are already fat and wealthy and rich that are exploiting this world to become fatter and more wealthy and more rich. And it's not like the people who work in these corporations benefit so much. It's just a select few who get the majority of the money. That is the corruption that is happening in the world today. And that is sad. I remember being in a what do you call it? Not a Ponzi scheme, but one of those, what do you call them? Uh, One of those, things. I don't know what to call it. Network businesses. Went to a conference. This is back in the early 2000s. I remember the head of the guy talking about how the average person's stupid and how they're ahead of the game and despise poor people. I remember him straight up saying those things. He was a millionaire at the time. He's probably a multi-billionaire now. And he was talking about wealth and the secrets to gaining wealth and the mindset you had to have. And he was saying how the average person is not interested in this and not interested in going this direction, and only a select few, and you are one of the select few. And I remember him saying how, don't try to help poor people. Don't try, because even if you were to give a poor man $1 million, he'd be poor the very next day because he didn't know how to spend it, and so on and so on and so on. And and I was trying to explain that the established order is as it is, and you should just go along with it, and you should become one of the wealthy class because the other people, they're too stupid to try and move up. They're just too stupid. And this arrogance he spoke with. And I remember thinking to myself as a Christian, and he was a Christian supposedly. I remember thinking in my heart and in my mind, I was saying to myself, something's wrong about this. How can you be mocking and scorning the poor? Another thing I hear people say all the time, even when I was having a conversation in a taxi with the driver, he said, the poor will always be with us. Now, he's quoting scripture, if he didn't know. But he says, the poor will always be with us. The question is, what are you going to do for you? And I was thinking to myself, yeah, the poor may always be with us, but there's a scripture in the Bible that you just not listening to. It's James chapter 1, verse 27, which speaks about pure religion, pure religion is this: to tend to the orphans, the widows, the poor, and to keep oneself unspotted before it. Why am I tending to the poor? Why am I tending to the poor? I'm going to tell you why. Because a lot of y'all think it's all about being rich. It's all about being wealthy. And that's what this world teaches you, materially at least. I'm going to tell you why. Because there's a scripture that says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. You know who he's talking about? I'm going to translate that language for you guys to understand. Blessed are the depressed, the hopeless. You're going to get the kingdom. I'm trying to make this as clear as possible so you guys can understand me and about humanity. You got to understand the sore points in society, what young people would call the downers, the people who are boring, the people who I don't care about. And the young society we've not taught our youngsters to appreciate and to love and care for the disenfranchised, the poor, the people who fall in unfortunate circumstances, the drug abuser, the addicted person. Our heart says, oh, it's going to be some work. Let me see if I can help this person get their life back together. That's love. And that's what Jesus wants us. And that's true religion. True religion is not about ceremonies and all that bull. That's cool, but no. It's not about going and seeing your friends on a Sunday or a Friday or a Saturday or a Wednesday. It's not about going to a mosque and bending down and praying, It ain't about no worship service. Pure religion, true and pure and undefiled is this: Did you hear what James said? To attend to the widows, the orphans, the poor, and to keep oneself unspotted before the world. That's true religion, y'all. Is an action. Same James, he said this. I don't mean to preach this morning. That's not what I'm here for. But I feel like if I sound like I'm preaching, then that's not cool. But I got to go there. James said, he also said, show me your faith by your works, because faith without works is dead. Faith is an action. We talked about that before. It's an action. You know what I'm saying? Now, the guy talking to you right now on YouTube, me, I'm not perfect. I don't like saying that, but I gotta say it. It's a confession. But this is what real religion is. It ain't Islam. It ain't Catholicism. It ain't Protestantism. It ain't Buddhism and all the other isms out there. It's none of that. It is an action. A little entertainment stuff. Russell Crowe will instruct Henry Cavill in the ways of the immortals in the remake of The Highlander. So it seems as though Russell Crowe will be his mentor, acting as his mentor in Highlander. Henry Cavill being in Highlander, I could see that happening because in The Witcher, you know, he could really handle a sword. So it should be sick to see that. And that was by Variety. I saw this on YouTube and now I'm seeing it on here. I love it. Listen.
The endless support for Israel, very expensive when people are literally buying groceries on credit in the United States.
Giving money to Israel for endless wars, years and years, billions and billions and billions of dollars. This doesn't make any sense. It's not rational. Why are we doing that?
I want to hear why that is a good use. We have people sleeping out on the streets of America 2 blocks from the nation's capital. You tell me why spending billions of dollars to support Netanyahu's war and starving children is a good idea. I'd love to hear it.
Look, the United States and Israel are two separate countries, and they often have different interests. The reason the lobby works so hard is because Israel's interests conflict with America's interests, and the lobby wants to go to great lengths to make sure that Israel's interests prevail in that competition.
Beautifully done.
Came out yesterday and said anyone who bombs a hospital is a war criminal and should be prosecuted for doing so. They're very serious about this, okay? Lots of strong words. Did they forget that in Gaza over the past 600 days, they bombed 36 hospitals? There are literally 0 fully functioning hospitals left in Gaza right now. Over the past 600 days, they bombed 40 hospitals in Lebanon. And just over the past few weeks, they targeted 3 different hospitals. Actually, Red Crescent of Iran came out today and said 5 hospitals have been targeted now. This is insane. You guys, this is the most hypocritical regime on the face of the planet. Apparently now, it's not okay to do that to hospitals. Apparently now, everyone in Israel, everyone in the Israeli government now thinks it is very, very bad to target a hospital after targeting hospitals for the past 600 days and saying, human shield, human shield, human shield. But, oh, wait, actually, Iran didn't even target this hospital. They didn't bomb a hospital. There's 2 IDF intelligence bases on either side of the hospital, and they targeted those. You ever wonder why you don't see any photos or videos from the Israeli propagandists or from the Israeli government of a giant crater in that hospital? Surely by now, it's been over 24 hours. Surely by now, the Israeli government official account or the Netanyahu's official account on Twitter would have posted a giant missile crater in that hospital if there was one. But there wasn't one because what Iran did was target 2 IDF intelligence bases that were located nearby. Because Iran has very big missiles, the shockwave from the blast blew out some of the windows, some of the rubble, some of the dust came into the hospital. Notice how they're saying that Israel hasn't said that anyone has even been injured in the hospital. I wonder why. Because the hospital wasn't targeted. No injuries in the hospital, no missile crater, no photos, no evidence, just some rubble, some dust, some windows that were blown out. I mean, of course, this is you don't want windows to get blown out of buildings and stuff, but let's be real, it wasn't targeted. And who has targeted hospitals and bombed hospitals, leveled hospitals, strapped hospitals with explosive devices and joyfully made TikToks of themselves blowing it up for the past 600 days? Israel has done that